So what we got here is the CryptoPrevent beta page. So currently is in beta and will be until we do our final release prior to Halloween here. And you can get it from there. And
thanks for copying that. They might not be able to see it from the URL there.
You're welcome. You are welcome. If you look on that page, we do have a couple demos of the Honeypot Detection feature, which I'll show off in a little bit here, and also some other interesting points about the new version, like the folder watch and kill 'em all integration and tray icon. And you can download your version from here. If you have the original white label edition, you can download it here and use it there. If you do our pre-order, it won't work with this edition until the final release, so just a note there. And otherwise, we do still have version 7 keys on sale for 20% off, so you can get those from here. And that includes the unlimited edition. So if you want a lifetime key before we change our prices and setup, you can get those now, and they will all automatically upgrade to version 8. And just so you can see some of the pricing changes we're going to be making, they're at the bottom of this page here. So we are going to a 1-year, 3-year terms for premium features. All right, so we got our CryptoPrevent here, and I do already have this one registered. And we'll kind of just go over all of the features tab by tab here, so you kind of know what all we have going on in this version. So first off, you'll notice you have a choose your protection plan here, and you got the minimal, default, maximum, and extreme, which is for the premium only. But that will enable every option that CryptoPrevent has and provide you the most protection, but it may cause some issues with legitimate software here and there. Because the protections are so high, it will go over some of those protections that might cause issues. Or you have your custom settings. Below that, we have either use the protection plan settings, which you'll see if you're on one of the protection plans, it will use those protection settings, which minimal doesn't have folder watch or prevent file types, which is the filter module enabled. And on default, maximum, and extreme, it would have those enabled. And if you go to custom, you can enable them selectively if you'd like. And these will depend on some of these protection settings you have selected under here. But past that, we have the new tray icon, which is the CryptoPrevent Quick Access. If we go ahead and check that here, it'll go ahead and start it down here. And then if you right click, you have a few options you can select from. Probably one of the nicest features of having the tray icon here is having quick access to the kill 'em all portion of CryptoPrevent, or the integration with CryptoPrevent. And essentially what that's going to allow you to do is, say you have a bunch of windows open that you don't want to deal with. Say you had a pop-up here and you're worried about hitting the X button because the X button might not be an actual X button. It could perform other tasks, and that's true for any program out there. You can just come down to your CryptoPrevent tray icon and hit kill non-essential programs, and they will be gone. So pretty nice feature there, and you can also do it straight from the interface. Tray icon is a premium only feature, so you would have to have a registered copy to utilize this feature. But if you wanted to use the interface, you could use that at any time and kill the apps from there. Past that, on the main screen and on every screen, you'll be able to see how many software restriction policies you have loaded, as well as how many hash definitions we have loaded. Right here, you can see we have 47,545 hashes loaded right now, and that will change when we select one of the options under the updates here. And What do you mean? Is that also white label? Yes. Yes, CyberCrypt. Anything that I say is premium, white label
Yeah,
will have.
just to note, there's two different installers. The one installer is for everything but the white label, and the other one is for the white label. So the first one on that download page is not the one you want if you have the white label. Downloading the second installer, you'll note the download numbers are a lot higher for the other one because the white label wasn't, that we had very few sales of the white label because it was only briefly sold previously. So make sure you get the right one, and it'll accept the appropriate license keys from your existing versions. And one note on the white label, if you, and this has come up a couple of times, if you do not have a username or password or ongoing subscription, so to speak, with your white label, you don't need to check the box to enable the username and password fields. In fact, the vast majority will probably find they don't need to touch that at all. But let me know if you're having any trouble, and we'll be happy to assist.
Okay, I assume he's done with that. So otherwise, you do have your apply protection plan here, which would apply any of the protection plans you have, or if you have the custom settings, any of the custom settings you have selected. And then we have test protection, which still does the same route that version 7 did. That's one of the later updates we're going to do where it checks all of the locations, but for right now it only checks app data, as you can see it says here. Which, by the way, if you have even the minimal plan selected, that's one of the important places to protect with SRP in general, because that's where a majority of ransomware started out using, and still some of them to this day use. So let's jump into the protection settings. We're going to leave it on custom so we can go through and select everything. Notice here that I have the folder watch and prevent file types enabled, and we'll come back here and reassert when these need to be turned on and off. So let's look at our protection settings. Here we have the software restriction policies, the prevent file types, which is our filter module, folder watch, and the folder watch honeypot. Starting off under software restriction policies, we got our good old great ones that were pretty much some of the originals, which is the %app data, %app data star, local app data, and recycle bin. For app data, that's going to protect your roaming folder on Vista Plus, and for XP, it's going to block the believe application data. I'd have to double check and code there, but
I think you actually block a number of locations with both of those. So that's good. But basically, the idea is that we're capturing all the locations regardless of the operating system. It's not a specific folder. We try to make sure that any possible place, is monitored, including the root of it.
yeah, so this one only covers the root of that folder, so if any files get put into the root, which we'll show off here. So if executable files got dropped right in here, those would be prevented with that option. The /* option here will actually block files if they get dropped into the subfolder. So won't go beyond that, but it will protect ones in the direct folder underneath there, because sometimes they make a folder and hide in there since they realize some people were blocking this location. So that is those. Similar thing for local app data, and recycle bin will block anything trying to run from the recycle bin location. So past that, we have double file extensions, which I believe on this one I have it set to not show the extensions. Nope, I do have it set to show extensions. So double file extensions are when things try to do like this. And then if we hide our extensions, which I normally recommend turning this off for this particular reason, actually. But by default, Windows and Vista Plus, I believe, hides the extension. So when you look at this, it would actually be vice versa. So have that backwards. So it could be set up something like this. So clearly that looks like an exe, but when you hide the extensions, it looks like it just says .txt. So
one point is they oftentimes these are executables that include embedded icons that actually mimic the expected icon that you would get from the the double extension, or the, in this case, the, what is it, .txt you have?
Yeah, and that we can actually just even show that off here.
Like you could put the, you could associate the notepad icon. The point is they're going to go out of your way to trick you in this regard, and it's very important to be aware of your setting on your PC, whether or not you're showing the actual extensions.
But you wouldn't have to be aware with it if you have this protection enabled, because that's going to block any executable that is set up like this. So it has a .txt or PDF or DOC or any of these that are listed over here. We actually don't have TXT on this one. I guess I'll add that one, but usually text isn't a common one. These are your more common options to have.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You do have it. I just saw it. It's right there.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I did. Perfect. So, yeah, these are your common ones that they try to emulate, and they're actually executable. So people think they're opening a PDF or Word document or Excel spreadsheet, and they're actually executing a program. This protection will prevent that from happening. Then we also have the right to left override, which basically it does some weird stuff with how things are written out here. So you can learn more about that by just clicking on here, and that'll give you a whole bunch of web search options for how that works. And there's some pretty good examples about how that works, so we won't get into.
So I've included some right to left text in there. This would be, the file name, the complete file name of that file, actually, I don't think I cut. Did I catch the extension? Yeah, there's a .txt. Let me see if I forgot to get that extension. Hold on a sec. Yeah. So there you go. This is an idea of what you might see, I guess.
My hex chat does not like interpreting that. That's what I get on my hex chat. So that is of no use to show them off what that means.
Okay, all right. Well, forget it then. All right, maybe that isn't a great example. Sorry, my apologies.
If you just look here, there's plenty of reading material on what that means and how it's implemented in malicious terms. So past that, we have our default plan, which enables some more software restriction policies, program data, user profile, the start folders, and then it also blocks some of the Windows EXEs that are known to be used for malicious purposes at times. VSSadmin, syskey, cipher.exe, all of those can be used maliciously, and they will be blocked from being run. Usually is not required in everyday operation. Some legitimate programs may use these. I know Shadow Explorer would be one of them that uses VSSadmin, and you would want to disable that if you're using Shadow Explorer at the time. But easy to come in, uncheck this, and apply protection. Use Shadow Explorer how you need it, and then go back and apply the protections with it turned back on. Then we also have preventing known malware from starting, which is a list of known locations for ransomware that we have built in. And also a big important feature is turning off the Windows sidebar and gadgets. Microsoft actually recommends this because that was a horrible implementation and they know it, so this right here would be disabled. It's actually extremely dangerous because anyone can write a program for it. You put it on your computer and they have pretty high level access to your system at that point. So would recommend having that turned off. And then we have the maximum plan, which we go further with local app data and do the /star on there, which does include the temporary folder. You'll notice here that it does say that these options may need to be temporarily disabled during software installation. For both of these options, software, when it installs, can utilize these functions. A lot of it, if they're decent programmers, have it set so that it doesn't get affected by this. Like they make a folder for themselves under temporary and then have folders with their stuff under there. But in other cases, malware likes to drop into your temp folder and be blocked from execution there. So this is what that protection's for. And then also you have block executables temporarily from extracted archives. Essentially what this will do is if you try to just run an exe inside of a zip file, it's going to block that from being able to run. There was actually a forum post this past weekend that was talking about someone having issues trying to utilize a zip file they'd been emailed, and it turns out in the forum that it was actually Outlook that was blocking it, because Outlook does try to prevent some measures there, because email is the #1 infection point for majority of viruses and malware, including ransomware. So Outlook tries to prevent you from just running attachments willy-nilly there that could be dangerous. And CryptoPrevent will take that further and prevent you from running them there. So with Outlook, you would have to save the file to your desktop and then try to open it. And with CryptoPrevent, you would have to extract the file and then run it. So it's kind of like make sure you know what you're doing here, because these can be the most dangerous way to get things, especially if you get mailed an executable, which majority of your mail servers won't even allow anymore. But in zip files, they can kind of get around that, and that's why Outlook will stop it from that and make you download it to your computer so that you ensure that you want to open that. This protection will take it a step further, so it makes sure that you extract that archive and make sure that you want to run it from there. So past that, we have a couple other Windows programs being blocked. BCD Edit, which could block some backup programs, but if that's the case, you would just want to disable the BCD Edit and re-enable it. And it can be scripted, so you could script this before your backup scheduled to run and script it to run after your backup run. So that would be a good way to keep this protection enabled all the way up until you need it, and definitely would highly recommend having a backup. Pretty much there's no reason ransomware would exist if people did regular backups and kept them in secure locations. So Glenn points out the point that he can't train users to save attachments then run. Oh no, too complicated. Oh bother, why am I virused? And yes, that's exactly the point, and that was kind of brought up on that thread as well, is the fact that users don't like the inconvenience there, but honestly they needs something to tell them that they need to think about what they're doing here. So it is a very, very good protection to have, and I would highly recommend it because it is the #1 way that malicious files are spread nowadays. So don't open attachments, especially if you don't know where they're coming from. Even if you're expecting a package or it says IRS or anything like that, don't open those for sure. You need to be expecting to get something, and if you're not, reply back to that and say, why did you send me this attachment? What is it? Should I open it? And don't trust them. Probably ask someone else with their response. So past that, we have a new software restriction policy under the maximum plan that's disable Windows script host. A lot of ransomware is moving over to WSH to run their malicious files, and disabling this will block that entirely. It does block some Windows script host features that certain programs may use, but usually not general major ones. But Windows Script Host is basically an easy way to run JavaScript and Visual Basic scripts quickly and easily, and WSF files are included in that. That's just JavaScript and Visual Basic scripts put together kind of thing. And it actually also blocks a whole list of other ones. Michael, do you want to post that Wikipedia that has all the stuff that Windows Script Host uses?
Let me find that real quick, but sure.
Okay. So while he does that, we'll go ahead and move on from there. Did you have something, Nick?
Sure.
So those are just the software restriction policies, and we've actually gone through and blocked a number of extra executables that it's watching out for in this version. So tons more are being protected and blocked from there. And we do have a couple other options that could come in the future here that we have planned and will get added probably after version 8's released. In a later update, we've had some requests for doing things like the user folders and the desktop. So if you had files in here in your downloads folder, it would be blocked from just running it here. The difficulty with that is then you'd have to have like a special folder that users could move things to then run them, and that would kind of basically be the same thing as the executable thing, where they're just having to take an extra step to make sure that they want to run or execute those files. And kind of the reason why I haven't implemented it is the downside of that is people would just end up saving into that special folder and running it directly from there, just like their downloads.
I
don't make that much sense right now.
I don't see of a acceptable middle ground with that. I would love to be able to add that, but what we do for those downloads folders is have folder watch monitor that by default. So we don't exclude that from protections altogether, but we implement it for that reason. It is right what Brantley said. They would users would tend to, and I run, and most users I think run their downloads from the downloads folder, and making that inoperable would just serve to make them put their downloads somewhere else. And after Microsoft has done such a great job of getting everybody to put their downloads in the right place, which I commend them on actually, I think a little standardization there is a good idea. For data, for people transferring their data, around and backing up their data and all that. So.
Okay. So past that, we have the prevent file types, which this is using the new and improved version 8 filter module, which is based on the D7X technology / platform that Nick has been working feverishly on. And is right now, and has a lot more compatibility. One of the issues with the previous version is oh wow, Glenn still has people saving to the root of the C drive. One of the previous issues with the filter module was certain programs wouldn't run if you had the exe com files option selected, which basically if you had click to run or other certain applications that kind of launch a little bit strangely, this would prevent those from running at all. But that has been resolved in version 8 as far as we know. We're still leaving it under beta to make sure there aren't any other issues that we may have to work out, but that's been pretty much rewritten from the ground up, just like all of CryptoPrevent version 8. So we have some more things to come out, because as the D7X platform gets updated, it will incorporate features from that as well. So otherwise, we have the prevent suspicious file types and always prevent file types, which this will use some logic to determine if these are launching from the appropriate locations and then block them if they are not. And always prevent will prevent these running from any locations, even if they're in certain locations. And yeah, those are great options. Screensaver files obviously should only be in the root of the Windows folder.
So he meant regardless of location, so no matter where it is on the computer, these file types will be blocked. So it's not unlike the SRPs. It's not dependent upon a specific path.
Yeah. And .cpl files aren't used much anymore, and .pif files are back from the Windows 3 1.2.3 version. Is that right? But they're basically MS-DOS shortcut to executables, and those aren't really used anymore either. So
let me know if anybody wants a link
all the time.
A link to Windows 1.0 in a browser. I can get you that.
I think we'll be okay with that on this episode. But by the only plan that includes this one is going to be your extreme plan, but you can always come in and selectively select that. Now, this is one of these tabs that does depend on this options on the front here. So if you don't have this prevent file types enabled, no matter what you have set here, doesn't matter. If you have these all checked and you don't have this option checked, these settings are not doing anything. They are only going to be enabled if you have this prevent file types enabled on the first page here. Past that, we have the new folder watch, which this is the big feature that comes with version 8. And essentially what this item protection is doing is it's constantly monitoring these folders and any selected custom folders, which custom folders are a premium feature, but it monitors these folders for any files that get added or dropped in there that are matched on the hash definitions list. So if it finds one that matches there, it automatically quarantines it to a location, and basically that'll prevent you from running it. So if you download something that's malicious or try to save something to your documents from your email or pictures, videos, or music that ends up being malicious, this will match that hash definition and automatically block it there. The custom folders, like I said, are for premium features, but important to note here that the download desktops, documents, pictures, videos, and music will have a subfolder selection. So any of the folders under these and any folders under that will all be protected by this feature. The custom folder selections will only protect the folder that you select. So to give you more example here, let's say you pick program files, it'll monitor just the files added into this folder. So if you have a file that ends up getting added in here, it will verify against those. It will not check any of these subfolders. If you wanted to check these subfolders, you would want to go in and individually add each of these. And we did that for some particular purposes, mainly because some of these folders have things changed often, and it would kind of impact system performance that way. And otherwise, if you want to select them, you can go in and select them yourself and monitor them that way. Right now, if you install it and you have a bunch of files under these locations, you will notice that the service kind of uses some processing power fairly consistently for a little while, and this would only be for the um, first time it was going through scanning stuff, but right now it's going through and scanning all the files in these folders and verifying they don't match against the hash definitions list. We're going to have an update come out prior to release that will give you an option to scan or not scan those folders and files. So that can allow you to not save or can save some processor usage processor usage there. Um, we kind of feel like it is important to go through and scan those, because if some malicious files got added while CryptoPrevent wasn't watching it, say you started up into a offline boot or something of that nature and they got dropped there, then Folder Watch wouldn't know those were there, and you would have to rely on the EXECOM to block it against the definitions list. So that's why we have it enabled already, but we will give you the option to enable or disable that depending on how much additional protection you want to use. Just know if you have it enabled, it will consume processor usage while it's going through and scanning all the files and making sure everything is safe. Then finally, under our protections, we have our what we feel like is probably one of the greatest protection additions to version 8, which is our Folder Watch Honeypot ransomware detection.
I like it a lot.
Both of these options are going to rely on having Folder Watch enabled on this first page, so just wanted to double point that out here. But Folder Watch will also depend, or the Honeypot will also depend on what you have selected in here. So with Honeypot, which we'll go over here more in depth in a second, we'll add Honeypot files to each of these folders and any custom folders you have selected, and monitor those for encryption. So those will get added to the system, and then if they are encrypted or it notices that they're being changed, it will automatically kill all the processes on the computer and then shut the whole system down, or give you an option to reboot, but highly would recommend shutting the system down if you got a list like that, and verifying offline that you can remove any malicious files or anything of that nature. So we'll show that off when we apply protections here a little bit more, but let's finish up on the rest of the options here. So we have our policy editor, and here you can add whitelist policies for the software restriction policies. So if you have a specific item that's being blocked, certain applications don't follow Microsoft's standard rules on how to write software. Things like Spotify and certain password managers and other things sometimes install directly to the app data folder and just live in the app data folder instead of the program files, which is where they're supposed to live. So if you have that, you can come in and add the path to that executable, and that will circumvent the software restriction policy placed on it. You can always go through and whitelist executables in all blocked locations, and that will try to go through and find any of those that may be blocked and whitelist them. If you use this option, though, you do want to go back through and verify each of those programs and know what they're doing. Otherwise, I would probably recommend removing it, because that could mean you could whitelist some malicious files that way and essentially circumvent any protections that you have there. So if your system has some malicious files on there already and you whitelist executables, that would essentially just be giving them permission to run. So you would want to definitely check the list that comes back when you whitelist executables here. Past that, we have our blacklist policies. So here, once you apply policies, you can go through and check all of them and see what exactly is being blocked, and if you have a particular one that's causing issues, you can remove them. Although I wouldn't recommend doing that. I would recommend whitelisting the files that you need to run, not removing a protection in general there. You can always add a blacklist item, which that'll be a premium only feature. But if you have other locations that you want to prevent executables from running from, you can use this to block that location as well. Glenn points out to only use the whitelist executables on new or clean installs. So absolutely, you would want to make sure that your system is free of any malicious files before you use this, or right after a brand new installation of Windows, then that would probably be a safe time to run that as well. Good there. Then we have our hash definitions. So this is where you can add user hash definitions. And in the version 7, we had the blacklist for MD5 and SHA-256. So you could add your own malicious file hashes here and blacklist those from running, and that would go with the filter module prevent file types or the folder watch options. But with version 8, we've also added a whitelist. So if something is falsely included on our hash definitions list, you can go in and whitelist that hash so that it's not blocked or quarantined by filter module or folder watch, respectively there. Then lastly, on the policy editor, we have the submit new hash option. So if you have a malicious file that happened to get past our hash definitions here, you can browse for that file and send it to us. We'll just pick a random file there. And essentially this will tell you if it's on our hash list. So you can also use this to check and see if the hash is on our hash. And if it's not, then you can upload it to us, which will automatically add it to your blacklist and MD5 and SHA-256. So then that file will be prevented from there, but we'll also be able to review it and add it to our hash definitions, which will protect the millions of other people that are using CryptoPrevent as well. So it's a kind of way that you can give back to the community there as well. And we love getting new malicious files to test against, so feel free to send us malicious ones. Please don't send us just random files, but any malicious files we'll go through and verify and check and add them to the hash list if we deem they are malicious. Past that, we have email settings, which you can enable email alerts. So if anything gets blocked under software restriction policies, the filter module, folder watch, or Honeypot Detection, you'll get an email alert about those, and it will let you know what file was being blocked and what action was taken from there. So definitely would recommend having this enabled. It is a premium only feature, and one of the best places it's going to be useful for is the honeypot detection. You'll get an alert that that was why your system got shut down if you weren't expecting it to be shut down, or if the you missed the notification or didn't see the notification and shut the system down, then this would give you an idea of what file it caught and believed was malicious to shut the system down. Next, we have the history tab, which is going to allow you to check any things that happened previously that were blocked by CryptoPrevent, either the SRPs, the filter module, forward watch, or honeypot will show up in the list here, and you can check and look through those and see what happened as well that way.
You don't have an event to show off, even the
not yet, no.
The test event, no.
But those would be the same things you would get over email as well, but it would just give you a nice list that you can check in the interface here. I did want to really quick mention on the email setup, we do have a new option where you can set a new send to and send from. So if you're using an email account here and wanted to send it to a different location, you can use that. And if you wanted to set the send from specifically, you could do that as well. Lastly, we have our updates page, which automatic updates are part of the premium feature, and you can enable that here and select the time of day you want it to run. And also you can do your manual check from updates. That's free for any version. And then we also have the extended hash definitions, which this is a new and improved hash definition file, which Nick has worked on and worked on a lot of the back-end process to get more hash definitions. And essentially this will make this number jump up here, and we'll go ahead and apply protection so you can see how high that jumps. But like I said, if we select the extreme, that will go through and enable all of the protection features. So you can see Honeypot selected, all our folder watch, our exe com, and all of our SRPs. Then our extended hash definitions are even enabled there. So if we go ahead and apply protections now, we'll get a chance to see how many files are actually blocked, or how many protections are put in place there for software restriction policies and the additional hash definitions. But first time you run and answer yes, and anytime you answer yes to this, you'll get this message if you want to whitelist the policy or whitelist any items under blocked locations. And again, it states here, make sure that no malicious apps are already on your computer. So you only want to say yes to this if you are sure that your system is clean. Either way, if you say yes here, you always want to come back and check that whitelist folder. And we'll go ahead and say yes here just so we can kind of see what gets added there. But here we're applying our protections. And once that's done, we'll go through and check how many hash definitions are added and what things were under our whitelist. So it would want you to restart because of how Microsoft has software restriction policies implemented. You would have to restart to ensure they're actually activated. Otherwise, they can take anywhere from 5 minutes to actually apply all the way up to 2 to 5 days. So normally you would want to say yes to restart here. I guess we'll go ahead and say yes so we can show off the test protection feature. So that's going to go ahead and restart here. All right, so here we have the system back up and running. See our tray icons enabled down there. And if we right click now, we can see that it's got the extreme plan selected and the prevent file types enabled and folder watch enabled. And also the balloon tips, which you'll be able to see here when we try our test protection. So let's go ahead and open her back up. And you can see all these honeypot files that were added to the system. We'll talk more about that in a second here. All right, so if we hit test protection now, we can see things were blocked. And if you look down here, you'll get a notification using the Tray app. So that'll tell you a little bit more about what was blocked and why. and that will be available for any of the protections. So any software restriction that blocks stuff, you'll get a nice little notification like that. Any filter module items that get blocked, you'll get a nice little notification like that. Same for the folder watch, anything that gets quarantined, you'll get a nice little notification about that. The Honeypot is the only one that you won't get a notification for, because when that pops up, the notification trail actually tell you that Honeypot's been activated and to shut down your system. So no reason to get a pop-up there if everything's going to get shut down. So that is basically what happens with this. Is if ransomware does get past all your defenses, which this would be a good time to let you know that CryptoPrevent has never been advertised as a all-in-one everything you need feature. As you can see, we've even said here it's a antivirus supplement. So you do want to have active antivirus, active anti-malware, firewalls, backups. Did I say backups? Because I meant to tell you you should have backups. If I didn't say backups yet, let me go ahead and stop now and let you know you need to back up your data. Not only do you need to back up your data, but you need to regularly check that things are getting backed up as you expect, to the point where you even take a day or two every month or so and restore your backups and make sure everything is working as you would expect it there. The most critical thing about backups, besides having backups in general, is making sure that your backups are operating as you expect and knowing the process you'll need to go through to restore those backups. In a time of crisis, when you have to use a backup, then it's much, much easier if you already know what you're going to have to do instead of trying to figure it out when you're under crunch time, basically. Backups are so important, not only because of malware or malicious items, but hard drives fail, data gets corrupted, things happen. Backups will help you in all three of those situations, as well as malicious activity and ransomware. Like I said at the beginning here, if everyone was doing backups all the time and had them set up appropriately so that those backups weren't always attached to the system, but they had multiple copies of backups, things like that, there would be no ransomware issue and we wouldn't even be in this situation here. So highly, highly recommend backups. If everyone decides to do backups, we'll beat ransomware entirely. So just wanted to stress a little bit on backups, because that is probably the most important thing that you can do. Past that, if you have honeypot detection enabled, let's explain a little bit about what's going on here. You can see we got a whole bunch of files added to our desktop here. This is actually twice as the regular honeypot files would be. We'll go look in one of the other protection locations. You can see the honeypot files we have there. Unique name for each computer, and the nice thing about it currently, we may have to adjust this in the future once ransomware picks up on it, but right now you can go in and just hide protected operating system files, and you won't have to see those honeypot files, but they'll still be there, and ransomware, as we've tested, still tries to encrypt those files and will be alerted that way anyway. So honeypot detection is a extremely awesome feature. If you look on that CryptoPrevent beta page, we have the playlist to show off some of it against things like HolyCrypt and Cerber right now. We'll be adding more videos there later, but those basically were kind of shut down before they got to encrypt all of the files and documents on the system. And this is kind of a last step prevention measure. If it gets past all of your other protections, your antivirus, your anti-malware, your firewall, your user and network security policies, your CryptoPrevent protections, This one will notice that that ransomware is running and actively encrypting files, and then will shut down all the processes on the computer, try to consume as much processing power as possible, and basically attempt to kill that ransomware that's encrypting things before it can encrypt all of your data. Depending on the ransomware, it may get through some of your data, but the key here is to try to prevent it from getting all of your data. So this will at least try to protect you somewhat. And if you don't have backups for some reason, I don't know if I mentioned, you should definitely have backups. This will help you out in that situation as well, where it will prevent some of the files. A lot of the ransomware we've tested with internally, we don't have videos on all of them yet. It blocks it from before it even gets to any legitimate files. So we're very excited about this feature, and it does seem to work fairly well. But again, if it gets to this point, it's a last-ditch effort to try to protect your system, and at the worst, it'll make it so you can shut down the system and get it cleaned up before you start it back up. Very, very important that if this honeypot detection gets enabled and you take your system into a shop to get it cleaned up, tell them to not turn the system on. That you don't want them to turn it on. You want them to clean the system up offline. They should know what that means. If they are a reputable shop, if they look at you funny, take your computer somewhere else. But offline, you can even do yourself if your antivirus has a boot CD, or you look into options for antivirus boot disk. There's all of your major antivirus have an option to scan offline, where you'll boot to a CD or flash drive and scan your computer for malicious files and try to remove them. Those are sometimes a little bit dated, so they don't catch the latest and greatest. So usually it still would be preferable you take it to a qualified technician, preferably one that's powered by D7 technology there. But they should be able to remove those files offline, get your system cleaned up, and then start your system up and clean it regularly as well. Just because if something's active on there, it may have put in startup features and automatically run next time. So definitely wouldn't want that happening. But if it did, this would come up and stop it again and ask you to shut the system down again. The biggest thing there is some more files may have gotten encrypted if you start it back up and it's still active. So just keep that in mind. But otherwise, I believe that is it and everything. Did anyone else have anything they wanted to add on there?
Just to be careful if you try to test out the honeypot. But other than
Yeah,
that,
definitely don't try the honeypot test on yourself. Use videos or go ahead, Proctor. Were you about to say something, Proctor?
Oh, no, sorry.
yeah, so just take steps to protect yourself if you're going to be testing with that virtual machine that is not connected to any network that you're any networks. That's pretty much what you need to do to remain safe.
So otherwise, I did want to mention, because I'm not sure if I mentioned it yet, but you should have a backup system in place.
Oh yeah,
that is key feature. It's not a key feature of version 8, but it's a key feature to your daily life. Backups are so important. I have actually a triple backup system. I think Nick has a triple backup system. Michael, I don't know what his computer's broken all the time anyway, so if he set up a backup, it would probably be broken anyway. Proctor, do you have backups?
Yeah, I'm using Crash Plan.
Yeah, and that's what Nick is using as well. I'm actually using the built-in Windows 10 backup as well as the Windows 7 version backup on Windows 10, and have it backing up into 2 different locations there. So it doesn't matter what backup system you use.
I've got Crash Plan, Windows 10. I use SyncToy on a scheduled task for a bunch of stuff. I have to and from virtual machines. Just I got everything, man.
Nick goes all out on backups, and that is honestly what you want to do, because if one of those services is down, you still need to be able to get to your files. So, backup
And with CrashPlan, the cool thing about that though is you can back up to other machines on the network or over the internet that you personally own. You don't even have to use their servers, and that's free. I do that too.
Yep. So yeah, definitely backup in any and all ways. You can never have too many backup copies. It's only going to protect you into the future even further. So highly, highly, highly recommend doing backups. I can't stress enough that backups are probably the most important thing that you want to do there. Before we wrap up here, I did want to point out the updates. Like I said, we have the extended updates added here, and you'll see that there's now 57,000, where before I believe we had 47,000. So an extra 10,000 definitions added, and those are being updated weekly now. Is that correct, Nick?
Yeah, right now it's like every Thursday morning.
So we should see new definitions come out if those are available for us, and we are outsourcing those from several locations, but I believe the main one, did we mention it in here?
Sane Security was the main
Yeah.
one. And they host a bunch of other things too, a bunch from other people, but they have their own.
So big shout out to Sane Security for providing hash definitions and helping protect y'all as well. And otherwise, I think that about covers it. So thanks everyone for watching.